All right, everybody. As I continuously share the content, thank you for hanging out with us this evening on Unscripted. It's episode, God knows how many we've been doing. Logan is still on a sabbatical, selling it into his new apartment and getting set up for his radio station anchor gig out there in Gainesville, Georgia. And again, we wish him all the best in his new endeavors. Um, my boy, Jonathan Mathis, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Los Angeles Lakers, Los Angeles Rams, when he's not exactly upset with them, is here to hang out with me. We're going to talk some playoffs and baseball and football, basketball, NCAA. We're going to be all over the fucking place. But again, my boy Johnaton is here to hang out with me. And man, what a time to be alive. Johnaton, thanks, man. How you doing, brother?
What a time to be alive, my friend. I'm thrilled to be back on this show, joined by my good friend, which is you, Jason. And Jason, I'm sitting here having a sweet tooth because I'm sitting here eating all this candy that we collected yesterday while we went trick-or-treating. I took my daughter trick-or-treating, and it turns out that I bought this candy. I got this candy for myself, not for my daughter, because my daughter is still too young to eat the candy. So who else is going to eat the candy? It's only going to be me eating the candy. So I'm sitting here just snacking away, enjoying the sweets.
And then, and by the way, I totally agree with you. I've never been a natural parent. I've only been a step parent. But I will tell you, the best thing about being a parent at Halloween is you get to enjoy and test, in quotations, you get to test their candy and enjoy the benefits of their labor. And if that's not a sweatshop factory from the Philippines, well, hell, I don't know what is. My boy, Dustin Reese, better known as Stat Guy, better known as the Purple Hater, better known as everything Northbound NFC version, is in the house. Dustin, my brother, what's up?
What's going on, Jay? Just recovering from probably one of the more exciting NFL trade deadlines in recent memory.
Oh, wow. You know, I'm glad you said that, Dustin, because that's a perfect, perfect segue into the opening comments that I wanted to get into before we actually get into the show and all that possesses, right? Let me just give you the trades as I see it so far. Now, again, these aren't the exact details of every single trade. I didn't go that far into depth. I'm just telling you what players went to what teams. And then I want each of you guys to tell me who you think made out. And again, guys, we got a lot to go through. So I'm not asking you to necessarily curtail what you're going to say, but keep it moderate because we have a lot to go through tonight. I'm going to tell you the trades, and then we're going to get into it. You have Chase Poole that went to the Bears. You got Smith, Roquan Smith that went to the Ravens. You have Quinn, the defensive end that went to the Eagles. Chase Edmonds goes to Denver. And I put Akers in quotations as why has he not gone anywhere? I'm just putting that out there. Chubb in Miami on defense. Hawkinson, the tight end from Detroit to the Vikings. The quarterback, Jackson from the Commanders, goes to the Steelers. The defensive end, Martin, that goes to the Broncos. Calvin Ridley, which probably won't see the light of day until next year, going to the Jags. Running back Wilson going to Miami. Running back Hines going to the Bills. For the Colts to receive Moss, 6th, 5th round picks as well. And then you have, so those are kind of the big things that have gone on as of yet. I will tell you, in my opinion, I think the Eagles getting Quinn to add on to that already like completely stellar defensive unit that the Eagles have is just stupid. Not to mention he's going up against his old team and the Cowboys that traded him to the Bears to begin with. So that gives you even added pressure onto the Cowboys offensive unit from Quinn. So I think the Eagles, in my opinion, really added on the most value to an already equipped defensive unit. We already know what they go on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, honestly, the Eagles are the only damn undefeated team in the league, and they just keep pounding and pounding and pounding on that defensive unit. That, in my opinion, defense wins championships. So I got them guys making the biggest in that rate of return. Johnaton, we're going to go with you first, and then Stat Guy, I'm going to go with you last. Out of all the teams and all the players that have gone left and right, who benefited the most off of the trade?
The Eagles won big by landing Smith. I think that's a huge deal for the Eagles. And what it tells me is that the Eagles are going all in. They're going all in for a Super Bowl. By making the moves they made, this is clear to us that they want to win this year. They're in win now mode, and they did everything they could to, make their defense 10 times better than what it already was, and they added more depth to their defense. So to me, they're big winners in this trade before the trade deadline. And then can I mention my most surprising trade?
Go ahead.
My most surprising trade to me is Calvin Ridley getting traded. Being shipped to the Jaguars is the most surprising deal of the day, I would say. I didn't think he would get moved. Ridley, as we all know, has been suspended for the entirety of the season. After he was caught betting on NFL games. So it's pretty shocking to see that he's on the move, that he is going to Jacksonville. And that's what I think about this year's trade deadline.
First of all, because it seems like a lot of this is going to be addressed to Stat Guy. Before we get Stat Guy, and I know he's reading these comments, before he gives his projection on what was the biggest trade, and I'm sure he's going to want to address Sander Arroyo Sanchez in his comments. CMC to the Niners is pretty big. Yeah, it was pretty big. The guy only threw for what? A touchdown, caught a touchdown, ran for a touchdown. I mean, the guy's just doing every damn thing under the sun. Stat Guy, if you wouldn't mind, before you give your pick for the biggest trade. Matter of fact, give your trade who you thought benefited off the trade the most. Do that, number one, and then number two, if you don't mind. I don't think you're a Vikings fan, but I guess address the fact.
Yes, I am a Vikings fan. Actually,
are you a Vikings fan?
Yep.
Okay, so there you go. Question one, Sander. He is a Vikings fan. Number two, he wanted to know your opinion on someone telling him why. Number one, why would Detroit send Hawkinson over to the Vikings because they're a rival? And he says, other than being a divisional rival, is it really a rivalry? I think I can answer that question real quick. No, I don't think
it is a rivalry just because it's in your division. It's not like a Packer-Viking rivalry or like a Vikings-Bears, but it's still a rival because you're in your division. And
I get that.
You typically don't see those interdivision trades. But at this point, the Lions are 7 games behind the Vikings at this point. So, I mean, it really doesn't matter who they trade to because they're not going to catch Minnesota at this point. And they got a good haul for him. They got a 2nd-round pick and like a 3rd-round pick for him. So that's going to only help them for the future anyways of that team. So I can see why they made the move. I thought that
if you had to look at, again, all the guys I listed and the teams that they went to, who do you think benefited the most out of the trade?
There's 3 teams that I think benefited the most. Robert Quinn going to the Eagles, I have on there, but if you heard all the conversations yesterday, the Eagles were very close to acquiring Alvin Kamara from the Saints. Where
Yeah.
if the Eagles could have gotten that deal done, that would have
Oh my
single-handedly
God.
putting them over the top to be not only the favorites to come out of the NFC, but probably the Super Bowl favorites at that point if they could have pulled that off. I don't know what happened, why the deal didn't get done, but it seemed like it was very close to getting done yesterday. I think the Bears benefited in terms of the future because they got rid of Roquan Smith. They got rid of Robert Quinn to get draft picks for both of them. They also have $120 million in cap space for next year, which is the most in the NFL. They added Chase Claypool, which finally gives Justin Fields kind of that number one receiver that he has not had since he started his NFL career. So the Bears, I think, are more set up for the future. So that definitely benefited them today. But I really do think, and this is not just being a homer pick on my part, I do think the addition of TJ Hawkinson is going to help Minnesota a lot more than people realize because Kirk Cousins has gotten next to nothing out of the tight end position this year. And that's been the one position
and here's
that
the
he's
deal
been able
about
to
that
count.
guy. I want you to address this specifically, and then we're going to get it. We got to get into other things. But real quick, I do want to get your. And by the way, he says Chase Poole is not. You're right. Chase Poole is not a number one. My thing is this: them guys getting Hawkinson. I don't. Yes, is it a good move? No, not. It is a good move. It gives another tight end guy number one to block, number two to catch a pass. But I will say this: Minnesota already has an imposing offense, even without Hawkinson imposing. And you can say the same thing about the Eagles. They already have an imposing defense. They don't need Quinn. But I do think that the talent level of a guy like Smith and what he gives the Eagles and leadership, tackling, and all the other attributes
You mean
versus
Quinn?
what Hawkinson gives Minnesota is night and day. I think Hawkinson is a very small window of talent and a very small window of improvement. But I think Roquan is just like
You mean Robert
already. You know what
you
I'm
mean
saying?
Robert Quinn? You mean Robert Quinn,
Yeah.
right? Because Roquan went to the
Quinn. I'm sorry.
That's who I meant too.
Roquan went to the Ravens. And again, Raiders are the Ravens too as well. But I meant to say Quinn. I apologize. I meant Quinn. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I think Quinn, because Quinn had 13. Last time I checked, he had 13 and a half sacks last year.
18 and a half.
Quinn on the defensive inside of an already badass Eagles, and you're looking at even more quarterback pressure than what you already have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing with the Hawkinson deal, though,
Yeah.
the tight end position has always been very big for Kirk Cousins because that's usually his second or third read if his first read is not open. And
that's true. I'll give you that.
This year, Minnesota has gotten next to nothing out of their tight end position. You have Ben Ellefson, who's their third string tight end. He's played 2 games and he's been injured since week 2. Irv Smith was a second round draft pick 4 years ago and he's been injured and inconsistent his entire career. Now he's got a broken ankle, so he's going to be out 8 weeks. Johnny Munt is their backup tight end who's more of a blocking tight end who caught his first touchdown pass of the year this past Sunday. You bring in a guy like TJ Hawkinson, he's a tight end that not only can give you 700 to 800 yards receiving, but you put him in there with Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen.
For Irv Smith? You bring in Hawkinson. Okay, watch this. This is what I'm getting at, right? You got to balance the attack out. You got to have this will help. You got to have now. We're talking about just strictly the passing game, right? Not the running game, and how many plays the running game takes away from the offense, right? And in terms of number of plays. But just look at the passing game for a minute. You got a guy like Thielen. You got a guy like Jefferson. You got Irv Smith. You throw in how much is Hawkinson really going to give you receiving-wise when you got the first 3 options and Dalvin Cook out of the backfield if he gets one? How much is Hawkinson really going to help you in that? Because you only got so much to go around.
I think he's going to help a lot more than people realize because Adam Thielen only has 300-some yards receiving this year. He's not having a great year.
That's a good point.
Irv Smith only has 240 yards receiving. So between Adam Thielen and Irv Smith, they barely have 500 yards receiving. Hawkinson has 487 on his own right now. You put in Hawkinson.
Hey, that's going from a Detroit offense that don't have the weapons that a Minnesota has. And
that's going from the number one scoring offense in the NFL, though. Detroit has the number one scoring offense in the NFL.
No, okay. I'm not going to disagree with that.
Well, they do have weapons on offense in Detroit. The thing is, you put Hawkinson in that mix, you're taking pressure off of Justin Jefferson. Because now teams can no longer.
That's a good point.
Teams can no longer double. Teams are going to no longer be able to double team Jefferson because now they have to account for Hawkinson. You're keeping Dalvin Cook fresh, and keeping Dalvin Cook healthy has always been an issue because a lot of times they overwork him to the point where he starts to get hurt. You add him into that mix, he becomes your check down receiver as opposed to Dalvin Cook. So now you're keeping Dalvin Cook healthy. You're keeping Dalvin Cook fresh. And now you're also going to free up more targets for Adam Thielen because guys are going to have to account for Hawkinson.
Here's the deal, Justin. Now we're going to go to an unbiased resource for a minute. So my contention, and it's even Robert Scott's contention, even in the preseason, we've been saying this, that me and Rob Scott's contention since preseason is that Minnesota is good enough, and this is before the addition of Hawkinson, mind you. Our contention was that Minnesota would come out of the North and be a viable candidate, if not a very prominent candidate, to get to the Super Bowl. Now, I know you're there. I know now you come back. Do you believe that Minnesota now, with the addition of Hawkinson to what they currently had, Johnaton, do you see that Minnesota could be a viable contention to be in the NFC championship game and even possibly the Super Bowl?
I don't see why they wouldn't be a viable contender. I think they will definitely put themselves in a position to make the playoffs, no doubt. But you got to look at the other teams that you have to possibly face in the playoffs.
Outside of the Eagles, who would there be really?
Right, the Eagles,
Eagles, Dallas, and Giants, who Minnesota still plays Dallas and the Giants yet.
And the Cowboys, so it won't be easy for the Vikings, but yes, this makes them more interesting.
I didn't really put the Cowboys in there only because I want to see more of Dak and what he does. I want to see what Dak – I won't put the Cowboys even close to that evaluation until after they play the Vikings with Dak. But after the Vikings game, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need to see Dak against the Vikings, and which, in my opinion, is a very strong testament to that team. And how well he handles the Vikings, then I'll start looking at playoffs. But I'm not even talking playoffs until after we face the Vikings.
Let's put this into perspective for a minute, Jay, because Minnesota has that reputation of a team that chokes under pressure and that a team that kind of chokes like when the season is on the line. Yeah. If you look at the last 10 games for Minnesota right now, they're for sure going to be favored in 4 games. They're going to be favored against the Bears. They're going to be favored against the Lions. They're going to be favored against the Commanders this weekend, and they're going to be favored against the Packers at the end of the year. Then you have the Colts, the Giants, and the Jets, which they probably will be favored in those 3 games. So of their final 10 games, they're going to be favored in 7 of the 10. The only 2 that I don't think they're going to be favored in is at Buffalo and maybe against Dallas, depending on how that game pans out. So I think those will be the only 2 games that they're not going to be favored in.
All right.
If Minnesota goes 4-6 the rest of the season, they finish the season 10-7.
And I don't think they go 4-6.
But I'm just saying, if they win the 4 games that they should win, they would finish the season 4. They would go 4-6. They would finish the season 10-7. That means the Green Bay Packers have to go 8-1 their final 9 games to pass Minnesota.
I agree. Let me move on real quick, because I know we can spend all day talking about this. Trust me, we can. It's very easy. But I got to move on a little bit. Johnaton, offensive coordinator Brady, is out for the Colts. But my question is not so much that he's out because I think he's a part of the issue. But the other part of the issue is, how long is Frank Reich going to be in power before he's gone? Because we know that Jonathan Taylor isn't used nearly enough as what he's supposed to be used. They brought in Zach Moss. I don't know why. I mean, if you want to trade for Zach Moss, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. But I don't think that's your necessary quote unquote need as much as it is at wide receiver, especially when we know that Chase Poole was out there and so forth was out there that you could have traded for, but yet you traded for a positional need that you did not have a need at with Taylor that you don't even use nearly enough anyway. So how long is it before Frank Reich is done and we're looking at a new head coach?
I think he's on the hot seat. I think this could be his last season with the Colts. I don't think they're gonna fire him in the middle of the season because that's not the Colts thing to do. I think they're gonna wait to the end of the year and move on from him. But I think he's coaching for his job. I think it's been a disastrous year for the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Indianapolis Colts were favored by many to win their division. And, Frank Reich, some of his questionable play calling is what gets him in trouble. And, you're not using Jonathan Taylor effectively. You're not running a football like you should. The run game has to be established for you to open things up offensively. And I find it interesting that this latest shakeup comes a week after you bench Matt Ryan. Now you decide to fire your offensive coordinator, Marcus Brady. That's not going to change anything. That's not going to change the scenario. That's not going to fix these offensive woes. What's going to fix this is how Frank Reich coaches moving forward. I just don't think he's the guy anymore. I think the Colts will finally part ways with him.
Real quick, hey, I just found out who Takeoff was on the afternoon show. And hey, rest in peace, young brother. I hope you find peace and solitude in the afterlife. Rest in peace, bro. Turning our attention real quick over to baseball. We know Jacob deGrom is going to be in free agency. We know Scherzer's $130 million deal most likely is the model he'll look for. We know that deGrom is an aging pitcher, so he's probably looking for a team that is, either at or near World Series bound to go to next if money is not the option. I got 5 landing spots, and I could go in depth on each one, but I'm not going to for the sake of time. But I'm just going to give you my 5 spots in numerical order that I think he could benefit the most. 1 would be the Mets, to stay there and stay with Scherzer. Number 2 would be with the Dodgers. Number 3 would be with the Padres. Number 4 would be the Giants. And at number 5, I got the Yankees. Those are my 5 top spots that I think not only could they afford a Jacob deGrom contract, but also keep him in contention for a World Series. Those are my 5 teams. I wonder what you guys' 5 teams for deGrom to go to not only meet the criteria of the money that he's going to want, but also keep him in contention for a World Series that he desperately covets. So keep those 2 criteria in mind when you're coming up with your 5 teams. Jonathan, who are you looking at right now in your 5 for Jacob deGrom?
Well, there's a handful of, suitors for him. Teams like the Yankees, maybe the Padres, maybe the Astros, maybe the Orioles. The team I like the most, though, is the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs are mentioned in discussions regarding the best arm available this winter, and Jacob deGrom is the best arm available. And I feel like he can fortify that starting rotation of there. So that's one of my teams. Another team you have to put in the mix, and this is not me trying to be biased, the Dodgers. The Dodgers are always looking for new quality arms to go into their starting rotation. And I'm pretty sure they will be looking at Jacob deGrom. Maybe that's why they didn't make any midseason trades, or maybe that's why the priority is not there to re-sign a guy like Trey Turner. Maybe they're more focused on pitching and adding to their depth. So they could be another team. The Orioles are in desperate need of starting arms. They got young arms in that rotation, but they can use a veteran. And Jacob deGrom can fit there as well. Of course, you can't downplay the fact that the Yankees are going to get in the mix. So those are my teams that I think will be, in pursuit of him this offseason. It's going to be interesting to see.
Absolutely, and I don't disagree with that, stat guy. You know that Kershaw, Anderson, and Henney are all headed for free agency. We know Walker and Buehler are sidelined after Tommy John. So you got to imagine the Dodgers have got to be salivating trying to get a guy like Jacob deGrom, especially since they were supposed to, and quote unquote, make the World Series, and they didn't, even though they were the best team in the league. So you got to imagine they got to be salivating over deGrom. Who are your 5 teams?
I have the Mets up there just because I think seeing Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom pitch together for a full season is going to make a big difference as opposed to only having them for like 2.5 months together. I put the Yankees up there just because that was really the one thing that kind of did them in the playoffs when it mattered. They didn't have enough starting pitching when the series got tight, and having deGrom kind of anchor that starting rotation makes everything a little bit easier with how you can deploy Nestor Cortez and Luis Severino and some of those other guys that may not be true number ones, but they're number ones on the Yankees staff because the Yankees really have Garrett Cole and nobody else. Dodgers, are going to be in the mix just because the Dodgers try to get everybody that's in free agency, and I think the Dodgers need to kind of get away from that because obviously that's not working for them right now. The Cubs said they want to get an ace. Well, if deGrom goes for free agency, he's definitely an ace, but at 34 years old, I don't see the Cubs spending the kind of money that deGrom's going to want, even if it is on a short-term deal. I think the Cubs go and make a trade maybe for a Shohei Ohtani to get their ace as opposed to signing one in free agency. But the one team that I'm not going to count out, and I think Johnaton might agree, is San Diego. After what San Diego did at this year's trade deadline to put themselves in the position that they're in, they now got back under the luxury tax because they didn't do a ton of spending in free agency last year. So now that they're back under the luxury tax, they can open up the checkbook to re-sign Juan Soto. They have Joe Musgrove locked up for 5 years. They have Blake Snell for another 2 years. They have Sean Manaea for another 2 years, and they only have Yu Darvish for 1 more year. Why not go get Jacob deGrom as basically your replacement for Yu Darvish when Yu Darvish walks?
To caveat off of the Padres, that's a good point. Darvish, Musgrove, Snell, we know are under contract right now. Clevenger, Manaea, they're set to hit the market. We know they fell 3 games away from the World Series. So we also know that the AJ Preller, the GM for the Padres, likes shiny new things. So the fact that you can bring in deGrom and throw him into that rotation could be the deciding factor to put you into the World Series. So total sense. Scares me is we know that the Yankees have an unlimited amount of money. We know the Padres are 50% luxury tax 2023, maybe not able to push the envelope as far to get a guy like deGrom. I'm not saying they can't, but it would be definitely a push on the luxury tax. Yankees, they don't care about a luxury tax. They never have. And when you got a rotation like Cortez, Severino, and Cole, and then you throw a guy like Jacob deGrom in the mix, I'm just saying, they also have to get Aaron Judge under contract, and God knows how much money that's going to cost them. So there are still some complacent things that they're going to have to work out financially within the Yankees organization to see if they can pull it off. So I do have the Yankees and the Padres as being rougher places for him to go. The Giants have already said that they're not going to get outbid for a guy like Aaron Judge.
I'm sorry if Aaron Judge says he wants $500 million. If that GM in San Francisco gives him $500 million, they better fire his ass the next day.
Hey,
Because you want to open your mouth and say that you're not going to get outbid. Aaron Judge can basically tell the Giants exactly what he wants, and if the Giants aren't going to get outbid, they have to spend what he's asking.
Now hold on. He can say that, but if the Yankees only willing to give him $300 million, I'm saying hypothetically, if the Yankees say, "Hey, our threshold's 3," and the Giants come out and say 4, well, 4. But even at that point, to your point, $400 million. The guy is 30. That maybe he gives you 7 years. Anyway, we'll see. Watch this. At the end of the day, we'll see what happens. But I do know this: Judge is on the free agency, Rizzo's on free agency, and DeGrom is on free agency. All 3 guys are going to want something. And I will tell you this, when it comes time to giving up the money, let's see who ponies up. We're going to leave it there. It's going to be freaking amazing to see what happens in the off season. Let's put it that way. Last thing I want to bring up, and then we're going to get a little bit in this World Series, Barry Sanders. I want to talk about Barry Sanders. Finally gets a damn statue at Ford Field. Good God, Detroit. Really, it took you this damn long to give a man who's probably arguably the best thing that ever happened to your franchise a damn statue. It took you this fucking long, pardon my French, but it's long overdue. The bronze statue is supposed to be 8 feet, and it's supposed to be there before the 2023 season kicks off. Barry Sanders, as you know, played there for 10 years before he finally retired and said, "I'm done." We know that the number 20 jersey that he wore was retired in 2004. You couldn't give the man who was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2004, jersey retired in 2004. You couldn't give it a damn statue at the beginning of 2005, Detroit. I'm just asking. It seems kind of stupid on Detroit's part, but I'm just bringing up the awareness that he shared the MVP award with a guy who didn't deserve it, but because of and I say this on a personal level because we all know what Brett Favre has done recently, but he shared the damn MVP trophy in '97 with Brett Favre. Fuck Brett Favre. Fuck Brett Favre. Fuck Brett Favre. But Barry, my God, you should have had the damn statue in place at the beginning of the 2005 season, and that's my point. Johnaton, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this dedication will make Sanders the first ever Lions player to become immortalized with a statue. It is long overdue. He should have had this statue many, many years ago. He was the foundation to that offense in the 90s. He was an absolute beast running the football. I think he would have played much longer had he had a great offensive line that could protect him. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way, so he retired much sooner than he should have. But there's no question that Barry Sanders was deserving of a statue in this honor a long time ago. He's a Hall of Famer. You know, he has been honored for many awards and many achievements, such as the NFL MVP, 1997, NFL Offensive Player of the Year, 94, 1997, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, 1989, and First Team All-Pro, 1989, 1991, 1994, 1995, 1997. So he was one of the most decorated players to ever play this game. And for him not to be honored in that city where he became the symbol of that city and that franchise is an absolute disgrace. This should have happened a lot sooner. But I will say this, Jay, it's better late than never.
No doubt. Gonzo, un momento. Because I have a question and an introduction. But I'm going to give Stat Guy his thing to respond to this, and then we're going to come to you in a very, very intimate moment. That sounds weird to say it like that. Stat Guy, man, what do you, as Gonzo composes himself, what do you think about this whole Barry Sanders 2022 dedication.
I mean, say what you want about Emmitt Smith and say what you want about Walter Payton, and it's no disrespect to either one of those guys when you look at what they did and how long they played. But in my opinion, Barry Sanders is the greatest running back in NFL history. The guy played 9 years and almost racked up 16,000 yards in 9 seasons. Had he played 16 years like Walter Payton, or had he played in 20 years like Emmitt Smith, you're looking at a guy that probably has 30,000 yards rushing. And if he has 30,000 yards rushing, that is a number that would never get touched, especially when you look at how the offenses in the NFL have gone to more of a pass-happy league now.
Damn.
He would have had every single rushing record that you could possibly think of, and I don't think any of them would have gotten touched. And the reason why he left was, yes, he had a terrible offensive line, but he also had a coach in Bobby Ross that absolutely hated Barry Sanders. Because if you remember right, what happened the year after Barry Sanders left? Bobby Ross was out the door. And Bobby Ross drove Barry Sanders out the door. Bobby Ross drove a lot of those players out the door. Had they realized that sooner, Barry Sanders probably stays for another 5-6 years in Detroit, and who knows what records to set.
That was the whole crux for him leaving, honestly. He wanted to play on another team. They wouldn't release him. And because they wouldn't release him, he basically just said, okay, fine, I retire. And we've never seen Barry after that day. So, yeah, Bobby Ross and what you're saying, Stat Guy, is totally, unequivocally true. Real quick, number one, I want to go back real quick if we can before I bring Mr. Gonzalez into the fray. He says, oh, no, don't worry about that. Okay, we'll bring him into the fray anyway. The Rangers. That's what I want to go back to. He says Braves and Rangers and Yankees and Giants and Padres for DeGrom. I don't think the Rangers go after him. Or maybe they did go after him, but I don't think he goes to the Rangers because DeGrom's not trying to go to a team that finished dead last in their division. I think he's wanting to go to a team that is more World Series ready. So that's why I don't have the Rangers in the hunt for DeGrom. Gonzo, real quick, brother, man, couple of things. Number one, thank God you're here, man. I've been waiting for you, brother. So thank you for being on the show. But mostly, Gonzo, I want to know what you think about the Indianapolis Colts, because you weren't here when we had the discussion. But what do you think about the Indianapolis Colts bringing in Moss for Hines, which is basically a running back swap behind Taylor, who we know doesn't even hardly use Taylor like we talked about earlier? What is your thought press on that kind of a trade versus bringing in a Claypool or bringing in whoever else might be available, or a Brian Cooks out of the Texans that is looking for a trade? Why not bring in a Cooks, which could be your wide receiver one, over a Moss or whatever else may be trying to bring? Like, what is your thought process?
It didn't bother me that they traded Hines, but what they got back for him kind of bothered me because I thought they would try to maybe get a receiver or offensive or help at the offensive line position instead of another running back. I know you got the draft pick as well, but they might be. Honestly, I don't think Moss is going to be with them very long. They're probably going to try to move him for maybe more draft capital or something because we have a pretty good rookie running back in Jackson. About Colts, what's crazy of 3 of those games.
Yeah, he's talking about pitching. So to parry off of that, right? We know that the offensive coordinator Brady was fired. This kind of coincides with what John is asking you. We know that Brady was fired. Why has Frank Reich not? Or do you think Frank Reich is going to be done at the end of this year?
Unless the Colts have a magical turnaround and finish the year strong and win like 4 or 5 games in a row and maybe make the playoffs, I see Frank Reich as being gone at the end of the season.
Right.
That Brady getting fired today, I said it earlier this morning. That he's just being used as a scapegoat. Yes, right. He was the offensive coordinator in title, but he don't call the plays. Frank Reich Frank Reich calls all offensive plays.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's just a scapegoat move, kind of more in Frank Reich trying to keep his job. I see Frank Reich gone at the end of the season unless there's a big change in the way we play. I understand what John is trying to say about Taylor winning in them games, but if you watch the last 2 games, Taylor's only getting 10 carries a game.
Which is ridiculous.
He got 15 this game, 10 the game before. And that's crazy. I mean, he should be touching ball 20
Jonathan Taylor should be averaging 20 carries a game.
At least.
For his aptitude, he should be averaging 20.
Well, get this, Jay. 2 games ago, he had 10 carries. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry in that game, and you only gave the ball to him 10 times.
Unacceptable. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. And he says, "Have we noticed coaches that are head coaches that also play the offensive calls in the past don't last long?" I think, yeah.
And Jay, you and Jonathan have heard me say this multiple times. Frank Reich runs the Colt. He manages the game like he's an offensive coordinator, not a head coach. I know both of you have heard me say that multiple times.
Hey, not everybody can be Andy Reid where you're calling offense and head coach too. I mean, that doesn't happen. Hey, look at Bill Belichick. Probably arguably the best coach in football ever, and yet he don't even do both. You know he don't do both.
And I'm not just talking about the play calling part. It's just like the game management part. It's right. He don't get it. Like I don't know. He manages the game as an offensive coordinator instead of a manager. You know what I'm trying to say?
I trust me. I understand exactly what you're trying to say, and that's why I'm like, some things make sense, some things don't make sense. We'll pick that up. Hey, by the way, Sam Ehlinger in his debut for the Colts, I want to point out, did not turn the ball over via interception. Good job, Sam.
No, he had one fumble, and that was it.
But you know what? We can build on that. That's neither here nor there.
I thought Ehlinger played a real good game for us.
I thought he did good. I thought he ran the ball a little bit. I thought he showed a little bit of mobility, and he passed pretty well. So I think Sam is a good guy for you to build off.
He made a couple of difficult throws and put the ball on the money. So
he was accurate and he looked efficient. Yeah, he did.
All right,
he didn't look scared or nervous out there. He looked comfortable. I thought he done real well for his first game.
Yeah.
Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to switch over to the World Series. As you know, the time is 7:47. Tip-off is at 8:03. Currently in Philadelphia, we are introducing the players as they come out. Bryce Harper just had his name announced. He's coming out. So, obviously we're announcing the guys. We're getting ready for the national anthem and things that go on from there. I just wanted to do a quick recap of games 1 and 2, game 3, and then get you guys a thought process on how you see the game unfolding tonight. We know that the game was supposed to happen yesterday. There was a rain out. It was supposed to be McCullers versus Syndergaard, which I thought put the advantage in the Astros' favor. But having that 1-game separation, now it's going to be McCullers versus Suarez, which I think is going to pose some threats, and we'll talk about what that means for the Phillies going forward with Suarez in this 3-game series, if you will, in Philadelphia. We'll get more into that here in a minute. Game 1, we know, featured Nola versus Verlander. Phillies took the game in overtime, 10th inning, 6-5, off a Realmuto home run. Honestly, phenomenal game. I think Verlander definitely stuck it up towards the end of it. Unfortunately, gave up those 5 runs. The takeaway for me is that they neutralized home field advantage. That's the biggest takeaway, is that the Phillies were able to come into Houston, split the series, neutralize home field advantage. That's the biggest takeaway out of game 1. Astros obviously jumped out early, as we know, on the 5 runs. Phillies did catch up. But, again, I think it puts Suarez in a difficult position because he's going to start tonight. I don't think we see him again until we get to Houston. So I think it neutralizes Suarez as being used as a closing pitchers in games, 4 and 5, in my opinion. The biggest thing too out of game 2, we know the Astros came back game 2 and took the win in 9 innings, 5-2. We saw Wheeler versus Valdez. There was some speculation that Valdez, with his 9 strikeouts, was possibly putting something on the ball. I want to address a couple of things. Number one is with Maldonado's bat. We know Maldonado did not use a performing enhancing bat. The bat was grandfathered in only because of a safety issue and not a performance issue. That's why the bat is not allowed. It's a safety issue, not a performance issue with it splintering. They allowed Pujols to continue with the bat only because he brought the bat in. It was grandfathered in. But it's not a performance issue. So if you're out there thinking the Astros cheated because Maldonado used a Pujols bat, you got another thing coming, or get yourself educated, one of the two. If you think that Valdez was putting something on the ball, as we know, the pitcher's hands are checked every single inning. And if something was on his hands, you don't think in 9 innings or 6 innings or 5 innings, 6, I think he went 6.1, that something would have been discovered sooner than later. We all know that Valdez has ticks. Everybody knows how Valdez ticks. But if you think the Astros are cheating, well, you're just looking for something other than the Astros' success. In the story on that. I'm going to leave that where it lies, and you guys can pick up on it if you want to. Astros get 5 runs. If you look at the 2 games, the Astros have 10 runs. The Phillies have 7. So it was a 3-point differential in run scoring. We all know that the Phillies, coming up from the wild card all the way to the World Series, haven't given up 10 runs like that. So to put 10 runs on Wheeler and Nola back to back is stupid. So in my opinion, the World Series is going to be, at this point, in these 3 games that we have currently getting ready to tip off, and these 3 games is going to come down to the bullpen with the lack thereof of Suarez. It's going to come down to a bullpen battle. Who can go the longest in the bullpen in game 3, and whoever can go the longest in the bullpen in game 3, and whoever comes and strikes out early and puts points on the board early, those are the big factors. Now, I will say for Houston, the biggest factors is we don't know. Like I said earlier, they had the luxury of that one game where it was rained out. They had the luxury of looking at the ballpark, figuring out how to play balls off the wall to try to hopefully avoid an in-park home run, low the caroms, where it can bounce, things like that. I think that benefits Astros. But if you look at the current standings, the Astros are actually now, with Suarez going against McCullers, the underdog, and Phillies are now the guys that are favored to win. We know Altuve is coming off of a pretty good outing that he had the last game. So we know he's gotten over his slump. We know Pena and Alvarez both doubled off of Wheeler. Our bullpen did what they needed to do. I think Bregman went yard. Tucker went yard twice in this series so far. So the overall consensus in the first 2 games, like I said, is a 10-7 3-point differential heading into game 3. That's just where I see things as we speak. Johnaton, excuse me, I'm sorry, Johnaton. Gonzo, thought process, games 1 and 2, and what you think will happen in game 3. I know you're a Phillies guy.
I'm not a Phillies guy. I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan.
No.
Wait, let me finish.
No. You picked the Phillies to win, so you're a Phillies guy.
Let me finish what I was saying.
I let you finish. You done told me 3 times you're a Phillies guy.
Well, I know, but no, I picked the Phillies to win. I'm not a Phillies guy. I'm not a Phillies fan.
Hey, if you're the Astros, you're Phillies. I don't care about the Reds right now. It's Astros or Phillies, Gonzo. Who did you pick?
I picked the Phillies in 6.
Okay, so you're a Phillies guy.
No, I'm not a Phillies guy. but
I love you, Gonzo, but go ahead. But you're still a Phillies guy.
In the first game, like you said, Astros jumped out on them. I thought the Phillies showed a lot of grit by being able to battle back and getting back in that game. and they were end up being able to win it. Second game, Astros jumped back out in front again real quick. Kyle Schwarber almost had a 3-run bomb that was just barely foul, and who knows what would have happened then. I think all these games are going to be entertaining.
Hey, you either win or you lose.
Let me finish.
You're either foul or you're fair. Don't tell me that barely shit. Let's keep missing.
No, I'm just saying it was close. What I was saying out of all that is, though, I think tonight's game is going to be.
I gotta give you shit though. Damn it.
I think tonight's game is going to be another close game. I really do. I actually took the under the 7.5 runs for this game. I think this game is going to be a little more lower scoring than what we've seen in the first 2 games. I think Philadelphia is going to be wild. That's one thing I'm waiting to see is how wild that crowd is tonight.
They're going to be off the chain.
I'm going to stick with my predictions, Philadelphia in 6. But I got to say this: the Astros are cheating. They cheated in 2017. They're cheating again, Jay.
No, how? No. Beep, boo, Bob. You tell me how they're cheating.
Hey, I just had to say that to get you going. If you were messing with me, I got to mess with you.
Look, I know you're bringing pride out right now. I get it. Johnaton, man, come on, man.
No, honestly, I was just saying that to mess with Jay. I don't think the Astros are cheating.
Hey, I've been around a time or two. Put your toothpick back in your mouth, Dusty. You know what the thing about it is he says he's a Phillies guy, but he has that damn toothpick in his mouth like Dusty. I know who you really root for.
Hey, Razor Ramon. You got to think about the wrestling.
Hey. That's what you want to go with. Perfectly fine. No issues, no harm, no foul. Johnaton, man, please weigh in on what you think.
Well, the Astros are the more complete team when you look at them on paper, right? And they are doing a great job jumping out early. They come out swinging early and they put runs on the board early. And I think that's what allows them to set the tone. And the Phillies dig themselves in a hole because they don't have the bullpen to match with the Astros bullpen, which is a strong bullpen. They have a lot of arms out of that bullpen of theirs, and I think they can outlast the Phillies bullpen. Here's the thing with the Phillies, though. The Phillies are opportunistic. If they get hits at the right time, they can win. If they get going at the right time, they can win. If they find that momentum that they have throughout the course of these playoffs, they are a tough team to beat. The thing that they have that works out for them is the bats. The bats are swinging at the right time. The Phillies want to avoid another 5-0 deficit. And they want to avoid that in Game 3. They fell behind 5-0 early in Game 1, but they were able to mount a remarkable comeback to earn a 10th inning win. They fell behind again 5-0. It's something about 5-0. They fell behind 5-0 in Game 2, but they weren't able to muster enough hits to make the game exciting. And they weren't able to come back. They took a loss in Game 2.
Right.
You can't play from behind so much against a very good Astros team with a lineup like the Astros. The Astros will
and the thing about that is
they'll outslug you.
Yeah, exactly. So think about it. If we put 10 runs, on your 2 best pitchers, you got Suarez going tonight. But what are you going to do after Suarez? Where do we go from there? Because the Astros aren't going to stop hitting the ball. So where are we going to go?
Exactly. Where do you go if you're the Phillies? So the only way they can beat the Astros at their game is by outslugging them. And they would have to put up runs on the board early. And they would have to, keep the Astros off the board early.
Yeah. And again, I definitely agree with you. And the thing about it is, too, Johnaton, is now, so it was supposed to be, hold on. It was supposed to be, it was supposed to be Syndergaard. I'm sorry. It was supposed to be Syndergaard in Game 3 Now it's going to be Suarez in game 3. So now you're looking at Syndergaard game 4. So you're going to send Syndergaard against Javier. Really. That's what you want to do. You want to send Syndergaard against Javier. Now, Javier has a 95 whip, a 254 ERA, 194 strikes. If you look at Suarez, a 365 ERA, 129 strikes, at a 1.33 whip. This is really the matchup that you want to put Suarez into, or excuse me, that you want to put Syndergaard into, knowing that you gave up Suarez the first game of the season or series, and you don't have him available in games 2 and 3.
Yes,
and this is how you want to go forward.
Yes, because game 3 is critical. You want to go with Suarez because he's been dominant in this postseason. So you want to put him out there in game 3 because, like I told you before, Jay, game 3 is always critical. Usually game 3 decides the outcome of a series. Not all the time, but most of the time, a game 3 is that crucial where it kind of dictates how the series is going to look moving forward. So you want to put him in as the game 3 starter because this game is pivotal. Now, if you win this tonight, you take a 2-1 lead in this series with Syndergaard scheduled to pitch for game 4. So then you put yourself in a good position.
Exactly. So if you're the Phillies, if you don't win tonight, and you got Syndergaard in the second game of the 3 games,
right?
You're in a world of hurt. So tonight's game is probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, if I understand you correctly, tonight's game is so important for Philly.
Yes.
Let's just put it this way. It could be the make or break for Philly.
Exactly. So they're betting on Suarez to give the ball to Noah Syndergaard tomorrow with a win tonight.
Exactly. Which in my opinion, if you're a gambler, oh Lord, I mean talk about going all in. The Phillies are going all in on Suarez tonight. Let's just be honest. Yes. They're going all in on Suarez tonight. And that, well, we'll find out here in a few minutes. But let's move on real quick. We're going to get into the NFL takeaways. And we're not going to get too much into this. We kind of have already talked a lot about things. I'm just going to ask you a few questions, Jonathan. You give me your thought process on about 5 questions. So we're going to do 5 questions with Jonathan Mathis on the NFL takeaways. My first question is this. Is it time for Dallas to move on from Zeke as the number 1 running back, given Pollard's 130-yard performance last week or this week?
I would say yes. Zeke has not been the same since he's gotten paid. He has not been that explosive running back since he secured the bag. He's getting outplayed by Tony Pollard. If I said his name correctly, excuse me.
Yeah.
He's getting outplayed. This guy is more explosive. This guy is finding a gaping hole. He's able to create separation. He's able to move the chains. He's moving the ball effectively on the ground, and he is putting up big numbers. So, yes, I think it's time to make him your number 1 guy moving forward. He has proven himself time and time again that he is a huge part of this team's success. He is a big part of that offense, and now I think it's time that you look at Pollard more than you look at Ezekiel Elliott. So, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, believe me, I don't disagree with you. My second question is Josh McDaniels in the experiment over in Vegas?
Yes. He's a one and done coach. It's obvious that this hire was a mistake, that he was never the right guy for the job, that he wasn't deserving of the job, and he didn't qualify for the job. I don't even know why he was hired in the first place. We saw how it panned out for him in Denver. It was a rocky tenure there. So this is not a surprise to me. I think he's a one and done. I think he will be fired by the end of the season.
That's a good point of view. My next question is simply this. Now, this is where it gets interesting. We all know, and nobody's going to defy Tom Brady as the GOAT. We know Tom Brady and all the things that he's going through in his personal life. And that, with that set aside, we look at Tom in his professional life. And his professional life with the Bucs gives him a QBR on the last game. I believe it was against the Ravens, where he's now 3-5, and the Ravens are 5-3. Gives him a QBR, a quarterback rating of 27.2. Is this now the death of the GOAT? And how long before he goes to the slaughterhouse?
Yes, I think we've seen the end of Tom Brady. I think he has a lot of things going on in his personal life with the divorce. I heard rumors about his mom being sick. If she is, I pray for her. But there's just a lot going on in his life right now. There's a lot of distractions. He doesn't have the best offensive line in front of him. Tampa Bay is losing games at an alarming rate. He doesn't have Bruce Arians as his coach anymore, and he's not, the same quarterback that he was a year ago or a few years back. It's just time to give it up, and he probably has it in the back of his mind that he probably should have retired last season and didn't even bother to come back, but he did. And so now I don't think it's gonna hurt his legacy too much because he's still the most decorated quarterback and he's still arguably the GOAT. But this is not the way that a GOAT wants to go out. So I definitely think this is his final run. I definitely think we've seen the last of Tom Brady.
I got two questions left. My next question would be, we know that Seattle kind of gave a little bit of a dig at Wilson by Lockett basically saying or claiming that Wilson was the issue, that he needed all the credit, and that Geno Wilson doesn't require the credit, and maybe that's why they're doing as well as what they're doing. Do you see that as to be the factor? Was Wilson a factor in how Seattle was performing over Geno, given kind of basically what Lockett was alluding to?
I mean, it's hard to consider the Seahawks anything other than a legitimate contender after their win over the previously 6-1 Giants. I mean, that's a big win for a team that is doing it without a veteran quarterback that they decided to trade and move on with Geno Smith as quarterback. Do I think Russell Wilson was part of the problem? Sure. I also think the offensive line wasn't that great. I also think that Russell Wilson was burnt out from his situation in Seattle, grew frustrated. And when you grow frustrated in a certain environment, you're not going to give it your best. You're not going to play top-notch football. And I think he just clearly wanted out. He wanted a change of scenery, and that started to have an effect on his performance as to why he, wasn't delivering positive results for the team.
Right. And in reference, real quick, before we get to the last question, John says Ezekiel Elliott non-guaranteed salary in 2023, which we know would bring him about $17 million or so. I really, in my opinion, I love Zeke. Hey, I do. I love Zeke. But we all know that Zeke is just kind of faded out. And maybe a change of scenery could revive Zeke. Maybe a better offensive line could revive Zeke. I don't know. I just know with the current state of the Cowboys, Zeke, it's just kind of done. And I think Pollard has taken over. So I would not be upset and I really wouldn't have been upset at the trade deadline had Cowboys traded Zeke. I wouldn't have been upset depending on what they got for Zeke. Do I think Zeke is done with Dallas at some point within either this year or beginning of training camp next year? I think Zeke is done. And I would not be mad if they traded him and see what they could get in the next NFL draft in terms of picks. I think can only benefit the Cowboys, given what they have in Pollard. With that being said, Johnaton, my last question is: what team surprised you the most in Week 8?
I would have to say the Seahawks, man. I think that's a surprising win over the Giants. The Giants got off to an impressive start themselves, and I had the Giants, winning that game. I thought the Giants were. I know they're not the most talented team in the NFL, but the way they've been playing, it was only right for me to pick them to win the game, and turns out. The Seahawks made it real clear that don't sleep on us because we're here to play as well. So I think it was surprising to see the Seahawks, and their defense neutralize Saquon Barkley and that strong Giants run game. Their special teams forced 2 takeaways. So it was an overall great day for the Seahawks, and the Seahawks, man, they impressed. They put up some big numbers.
They really did.
Right.
Honestly, they really did.
They really did. And Geno Smith and their offense put the game away late after a rough start. So they got off to a rough start. They got back to the basics and they found a way to get the victory. So it has to be the Seahawks.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to go to the last topic of the night, but there's a couple of things we need to really talk about. And again, John Suggs says Seahawks and Browns. Yeah, I totally get that as well, John. I think I'm kind of right there with you. NCAA college football. Let's talk a little bit about this. Some things that kind of got under my skin a little bit. They got Tennessee and Ohio at the AP poll ranked at 2. And I think Tennessee, quite honestly, and Jonathan, you may have a different opinion than me, but I have Tennessee in my personal poll ranked at 1. I got Georgia number 2. I got Ohio 3. I got Michigan 4, Clemson 5, so forth. That's just me personally. We know Hooker looks to be gaining favor as the Heisman favorite or front runner. The Vols in Ohio, again, are tied for number 2. I just don't get that. Given how Ohio kind of struggled against Penn State in that first half of the game, and they didn't start to break away until about the 4th quarter. The 3rd quarter was kind of stagnant. They got 3 points on them, but they didn't break away until the 4th. So I got questions about Ohio at the number 2 spot. I think Tennessee destroying, maybe even obliterating Kentucky at 44-6 was a little bit stronger testament if you want to add in how bad they destroyed Alabama with the 5 touchdowns. Please do so at your own peril for why Tennessee deserves the 2 spot, if not the 1 spot over Georgia and Ohio. Do that with as you may. What does this mean for Georgia? We know North Carolina quarterback Mays, 5 touchdowns at 388 yards, about 61 yards rushing. Should be taken seriously, not so much necessarily for the Heisman, given the competition level,
right.
But UNC's Mays should be taken seriously, especially what he did against Pitt when it comes draft time. Keep that in mind when it comes to the draft. And again, Josh, I'm gonna give you full autonomy to talk about any game you want to talk about. I'm just gonna get this up real quick, and then I'm gonna give you free reign until we close down the show. Wake Forest upset by Louisville, 48-21. We know what Wake Forest did against Clemson, so that kind of tells you a little bit about Clemson and how soft they are. If Louisville could outscore them by double. Louisville scored his first win over an AP poll top 10 team in the last 20 years. So they got a top 10 team win. First time in 20 years. Tells you a little bit about that. Syracuse gets upset by a soft soft-ass Notre Dame, 41-24. I'm going to leave that where it lies. Kansas State over Oklahoma State, 48-0. Are you fucking kidding me? A 22-ranked team goes into Oklahoma State, number 9, and just calls them, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Because let me tell you something, Oklahoma State. If you don't do something quick, or maybe time has already run out, your Big 12 hopes are pretty much done. And this, quite frankly, is the worst loss that Oklahoma State personally in this series has ever taken against Kansas. So Kansas opened up the can of whoop ass that Oklahoma State wasn't ready for. TCU, number 7, continues to roll past West Virginia, 41-31, gives TCU a 28% chance to make it into the playoffs. And last but not least, Ohio, 44-31, like I told you earlier. If you look at it at the halftime, this was looking at Penn State getting the win and Ohio getting the loss. When you look at Michigan beat Penn State October 15th, 41-17. Now, I understand everybody has an off day, whatever the case may be. But if this is any indication, I see at the end of the year, Michigan beating the pants off of Ohio. I said it here. I'm going to say it now. Michigan rolls over Ohio. Ohio falls out of the top 4. I think TCU, if TCU wins out, gets their way into the top 4, and I think Michigan rolls into the top 2 or 3. Is Michigan the only downside to Michigan, Jonathan? And I'm going to close out my soliloquy on this. Michigan's red zone offense is an issue. And if you don't know it's an issue, then you ain't been looking at college football. I have found that in the end zone, 26 out of the 39 trips they've scored on. That gives them 13 trips unaccounted for 0 points. They rank 46 nationally in red zone efficiency. Do with that information as you will. I'm turning it over to Jonathan to tell me what he thinks about NCAA college football after week 8 comes to an end. What is your thought process is over the whole gamut?
Man, there's a lot of suspense. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of electricity. That has been the name of the game for college football this year. Tennessee definitely has earned the number 1 seed in college football. They look like the best team in the country right now. They're well coached. They have a stud at the quarterback position, Hendon Hooker, to me, who's a Heisman hopeful. He's playing out of this world right now, putting up big numbers, has the weapons around him to make something happen with that offense. But let me tell you something. Tennessee will face Georgia this Saturday. And that will have a drastic impact on the committee's second ranking. I'm just saying that's gonna be a major shakeup in these standings, whoever wins that game. And this will be a real test for Tennessee, because they have to go up against a pretty good defense, a defense that is boisterous, a defense that is fearsome, and a defense that is led by Kirby Smart, who is a defensive specialist. And then another thing that's going to shake things up in the standings will be Ohio State and Michigan. They will ultimately face each other in a regular season rivalry game. And that will tell us more about Ohio State. We'll learn more about Ohio State when they meet Michigan. And I'm with you. I think Michigan will pulverize them. I think Michigan will end it before halftime. I mean, that's just how complete and how scary and how balanced Michigan is as a football team, man. And like we said weeks ago, Ohio State hasn't played anybody. They've had a cupcake schedule. They've had a schedule that reads like a little kid's birthday menu. Menu. You know, when you look at it.
No, absolutely.
They've had a bunch of cupcakes, and so to me, Ohio State, they don't convince me enough to be in the top 3. They just don't convince me enough. That's disrespectful to Michigan. That's even disrespectful to Clemson. You know, but again, Jay, we got to realize something here. Ohio State generates billions and millions of dollars for the NCAA. So it's all about who can make college football the most money, who can make the NCAA the most money. And Ohio State is one of those schools.
And I don't disagree with you at all in the things that you've said. John Suggs, pretty much everything you've said, I'm right in alignment with you, with the exception of Texas beating TCU. Now, listen, John, 3/4 of my family has graduated from Texas. Okay, so they're all University of Texas Longhorn fans. I mean, trust me. And I'm a Longhorns fan, but I understand what Texas brings to the table, and I understand where TCU comes to the table, where they currently stand. And I don't see TCU losing to Texas. Now, does that mean an upset can't happen? Of course, an upset can happen. Hell, an upset can happen at any moment. We all know that Texas almost outbeat Alabama. So it's not to say an upset can't happen. I'm just saying favorably, I think TCU gets past Texas. And I do want TCU to get past Texas. Look, here's the thing, right? Texas don't have a dog in the fight. Even if Texas beats TCU, they don't get in the national championship title. Or no, in the NCAA playoff title. At the end of the day, mostly I'm Texas first, Houston second, in terms of my loyalty to my state. So when I see, like, for example, when I see Texas, if they had an opportunity to get into the top 4, I'm gonna go Texas. If I think TCU can get in the top 4, I'm gonna go TCU. Right? I'm Texas loyal first as a state, and then I'm Houston as a city as second. And you will know that if you look at our history as a state. Texas found its independence off of Sam Houston, which is where Houston gets its namesake from. So you got to look at how Texas came to be to understand the loyalty that the people have within. Just keep that as it may. So I hope TCU does beat Texas, because I don't think Texas has a dog in the fight, number one. Even if Texas beat TCU, what does that mean? Texas gets what, 9th, 10th? So that means what that means is, John, is that Texas doesn't have a fight in the national championship. There's no way that the University of Texas this year can get into the national title. It's just impossible. However, Texas Christian University is sitting at 7 and has a very distinct possibility, giving on a few losses and then winning out, getting into the national championship. So when I talk about loyalty, I'm saying if a Texas school can get into the top 4 and go for the national championship, how do you not go for that? How do you not root that on? How do you not want that to happen? Because you're bringing the national championship regardless back to Texas. And that's where my loyalty is. Man, what a time to be alive. Right now, Philadelphia is up 2-0. No doubt. 2 outs in the bottom of the first. Looks like Harper, I guess. I wasn't paying attention, but Harper got the home run. Man, what a time. What a time.
I'm about to go watch that.
Yeah. So, hey, look. Hey, it is what it is, man. 2-0 right now. Suarez is up. Harper got the home run. Bottom of the first. We know Houston has gone to bat at the top. So we'll see what Houston can do going forward in contention. So with that being said, we're going to get to final thoughts. We'll get out of here, go watch some baseball, and see what happens. Johnaton, if you don't mind, brother, final thoughts. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Man, thanks for having me again, Jay. It was a pleasure to be on. I just want to tell everyone where they can find me. They can find me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. Just look up The Sports Judge. look it up and it will pop up as soon as you type in the Sports Judge in the search engine. You should see a cartoon image of me. Subscribe to the channel. Do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel. I know my good friend Jay here is subscribed to the channel. If you guys like sports, you would be in the right place. You guys are more than welcome to chime in. You guys are more than welcome to leave comments. I would love that. Let's have a chat about sports.
Absolutely. Hey, again, find Johnaton Mathis on YouTube. Subscribe to his stuff. I promise you will not be disappointed. The guy's got a really, really good content. Johnaton Mathis, I'm not blowing you up. I'm not putting smoke under your screen. The guy really has a lot of good information. Check him out. He's definitely unbiased. We'll give him that. He's definitely unbiased. Hey, it's your boy Jay McLovin saying, hey, 2-0 going into the second inning. We'll see.
What happened to Jay? Jay just disappeared. All right, well, I guess I'll wrap it up for everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for being a part of Unscripted. We'll check back in with you guys Tuesday on, I'm losing track of his schedule. Thursday, right? I'm trying to close the show out, and I'm messing up on the days.
No, hey, don't worry about it. I got a new mouse, and apparently there's a button to the left. If you hit that thing,
man, I was wrapping it up for you. I was closing it out.
Hey, if you hit the button on the thumb level, yeah, you're out of here 5,000. Hey, listen, guys, I appreciate everybody. We will be back Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And again, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your couple of days in between now and then. And we will see you 7 p.m. Thursday. And hopefully either A, the Astros will have gone up 2-1, or we'll be down 1-2, hopefully making it 2-2, either way, or 3-2, whatever the case would be when Thursday gets here. But hey, we out of here. Y'all have a good night.
Bye-bye.